Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is Christian here. Thank you so much for joining me today. So today we are going to be continuing on with the holiday reviews, and the palette that we're going to be talking about today is the newest addition to the Too Faced line. This is the Gingerbread Spice eyeshadow palette. This was released for holiday 2018, and I do believe that it is limited edition. So today we are going to be doing a thorough, in-depth review about this particular eyeshadow palette. I have been testing this palette out, I'd say for the better part of at least 2 weeks at this point, or at least as long as the palette itself has been available. I have tested, played, and tried with most every single color in this particular palette, and I'm wearing a good majority of the eyeshadows on my eyes today. If you're interested in a full review on this palette, how they swatch, how they perform, what my thoughts, what my opinion, and my feedback, and most importantly, if I think it is worth it, then you are definitely in the right place, and you are for sure going to want to go ahead and keep on watching. But before I get into the video, I just want to say that if you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoy holiday reviews, holiday releases, and if you want to get thorough, in-depth reviews, then I am your girl. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. And yeah, you guys, let's go ahead and get into my review of the Too Faced Gingerbread Spice palette. Alright, so this is the Too Faced Gingerbread Spice palette. It does retail for $49, and I do believe that it can be purchased anywhere that Too Faced is sold. So Macy's, Ulta, Sephora, the Too Faced website, and any other retailers. It does come in the standard Too Faced packaging that all of the chocolate bar palettes do come in. When you open it up, you do get your mirror, and then you get your little gingerbread guy. How adorable is he? It does come with 18 different shadows, more similar of a layout to the Sweet Peach palette and the chocolate bar or the chocolate gold palette. It does not have the two larger highlighting shades that some of the older Too Faced palettes do have. In this palette, you're getting a mixture of matte, and then you're getting a mixture of those high shine metallics that are very similar to the ones that came in the chocolate gold palette if you do own that particular palette. This particular eyeshadow does have 9 true mattes, and those 9 true mattes are going to be Powdered Sugar, Sugar Daddy, Look at My Cookie, Figgy Pudding, Gumdrop, Spice is Nice, Gingerbread, Reindeer Paws, and Gingerbread Latte. And then you're going to have Oh Snap here in the center that is going to be a matte eyeshadow with a little bit of a specks of glitter infused in the shadow, but it does pretty much perform like a matte. If you pack this particular color on the lid with the glitter glue, you can get a little bit more of those golden reflexes on the eye. I have worn it that way. It does work. Most of the time I do use it more as a matte shade. I do have it actually in my crease today more as a matte. All you have to do is kind of dip into the actual pan itself, tap it off a little bit, the gold glitter will go away and performs exactly like matte. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to swatch all 18 shadows for you. That is the shade Powder Sugar. It is a very just kind of like creamy white shade, so it's probably not going to show up too well on camera. Then we have Spiced Eggnog, which is going to be more of a light champagne. Then we have the shade Gumdrop here, which is going to be matte, and it is going to be more of like a magenta. Then we have Gingerbread, which is also going to be a matte, and it is going to be a more mid-tone warm brown. Then we have the shade Warm and Toasty, which is going to be a metallic, and it's going to be a bit of a yellow gold. Then we have the shade Oh Burn, which is going to be more of a purple metallic that does have some flecks of silver glitter. So that was all of the shades in the top row here. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to the second row, and I will be starting with the shade Frost Bite Me. So this is the shade Frost Bite Me, which is got kind of like a silvery white metallic. Then we have the shade Look at My Cookie, which is a matte. It's going to be a matte shade with a little bit of a pink undertone. Spice is Nice is going to be the next one in the palette, which is also matte, and of course it is going to be a little bit of a burnt orange. Oh Snap is going to be a matte with the more glitter gold base. It's going to be more of like a pinky brown shade. Then we have another metallic, which is called Bake It Till You Make It, and it's going to be like a bronzy shade. Then we have the shade Spice of Life, which is also going to be a metallic, and this one is going to be more of like a greeny brown with like a hint of gold to it. So that was all of the shades in the second row. Now we're going to move down to the third row, and we will be starting with the shade Sugar Daddy on the third row. So this is Sugar Daddy. This is going to be a matte shade as well, and it's going to have a little bit of more of like a white pink base to it. Then we have a Figgy Pudding, which is going to be a matte purple. Next we have Hot Toddy, which is going to be another metallic. It's one of my favorite shades. It's going to be like a burgundy purple. It's going to shift gold and a little bit of green depending on how the light hits it. This is a really, really pretty shade. Next is going to be another matte shade. This is Reindeer Paws, and this is going to be like a brownie purple. Like it's a darker, like it's definitely a brown, but it definitely has a lot of purple base to it. Then we have the shade Gingerbread Latte, which is also going to be matte. And this one is going to be more of like a terracotta brown. And then the last and final shade in the palette is going to be Spiced Rum. This is a metallic, which is also going to have flecks of silver in the actual shadow itself. And it looks like it's a little bit of a, I have a harder time describing this one. I think it's like, it does have a little bit of brown in it, but you can definitely see a little bit of purple reflex in there as well. But I definitely think it leans a little bit more towards like maybe like a taupey brown, I guess I would describe it as. So as far as this palette is concerned, do I think that this is a good palette? Absolutely. I think that this is a palette that is definitely worth looking at, and it's definitely worth investing your money in if you were interested in it. Now I know what some of you are probably thinking, like when you look at this particular palette, it's kind of like, it's something that Too Faced has done before. We've seen it, we've been there. It's nothing special, it's nothing unique. However, I mean, and I'm not gonna lie, it's mostly a warm tone palette. We'll be honest about that. I do like the shade selection in this particular palette. I think that it is a very cohesive palette. I don't look at this palette and think, wow, that shade doesn't belong, or that shade doesn't belong, or that shade doesn't belong. Like, I think that every single shade in here can be paired extremely well together. Now, I will be honest, the only shadow in here that I have not tried is Frostbite Me. I have swatched it, I have kind of played with it a little bit, and it is a little bit more on the chunkier side. It is probably my least favorite shadow in the palette, but every other shadow in here performs extremely, extremely well. One thing to note, that when you dip your brush into the mattes, they will provide a little bit of kick up in the pan themselves, but I have never, not one time, and I've used this palette a ton, had any fallout on my actual lids when applying the mattes. The mattes are very blendable, they are very smooth, they are very easy to use, and they are beginner friendly, which is always super, super important. Another thing that I like about these mattes is they all play extremely well together. So I have 5 different shades in my crease right now, 5 different matte shades, and you can't tell one from the other. You know what I mean? You get a really, really nice gradient effect with this particular palette and with these particular matte shades. So which is why I say that it is very user friendly. You can go in with pretty much all of the mattes in here and not end up with a jumbled mess. I know that there are some palettes out there that you kind of just put one shade in the crease, you kind of put one to darken the outer V, and then you put one on your lid to kind of give you that little bit of shine or sparkle or whatever the case may be. But there are palettes that whenever you start to build, play, and put more colors and add more depth and dimension, the shades will start picking up on themselves. They will start flaking away. They will start to look muddy. They just don't blend well together. Not this particular palette. This palette works beautifully, like very, very cohesively. You can add color after color after color and get that really nice gradient and blended look, and it's gonna work every single time. Shades that I'm wearing today are Powdered Sugar as a base. I have a little bit of Sugar Daddy. I have Look at My Cookie in my crease. I have Spice is Nice in my crease. I have Gingerbread in my crease. And then on my lower lash line, I have Figgy Pudding. I have Gumdrop. And then I have a little bit of Look at My Cookie, so on my lower lash line as well. What I do like about this particular palette is another thing when it comes to the mattes. Say take Reindeer Paws, for example. That is the darkest shade in the actual palette itself. So you can apply it on the outer V. You can even put it in the crease a little bit. And when you are a little bit more of a novice or a little bit more of a beginner and you start going in with like deeper shades in your crease, they can be a little bit harder to blend out, or sometimes they'll kind of get stuck and then you're kind of like, well, what do I do now? What I like about this palette, like I already mentioned, is they blend and they work really, really well together. So if you go a little too heavy-handed with, say, Reindeer Paws, which is what I did one of the first times I tried this palette because I wasn't expecting it to be as dark as it actually is. I just went in with a little bit of Look at My Cookie and Gingerbread, and it just smoothed out and blended out effortlessly and beautifully. And this is a really, really pretty like plummy brown, and I tend to like to wear this a lot on my lower lash line just to give me a little bit of depth and dimension. Now what I have found when it comes to the shimmer shadows, I'm not the type of person who applies my shadows wet. The only time I really feel the need to apply my shadows wet is if I notice that they are not performing. Like if they're not giving you that impact or that shine, that high shine that you're looking for. I have not had that issue with any of these eyeshadows. Every single one of the more metallics that I have put on my lid have worked beautifully. They don't flake, they last on my eyes all day. I've worn this to work plenty of times and my eye makeup still looks really great at the end of the night. Now they do, which most metallics do, they do perform better with the finger because the finger is going to give you just that little bit more of an oomph, but a brush is perfectly fine. Like you're not going to go in with a brush onto your eyes and be like, well, where's the color, where's the pigmentation? No. So if you have long nails and kind of going in with your finger is not an option, don't worry. You could take something like the MAC 242 and be perfectly fine. Now what I do recommend when it comes to this particular palette, or most palettes in general, is you actually want to tap the eyeshadows on. You don't really want to swipe, so you just kind of want to tap them and place them and tap them and just kind of put them where you want it, and they're gonna last all day. I wear all shimmer shadows or metallics with a glitter glue because I have hooded eyes. One thing that I've noticed, especially with having hooded eyes, something that I have a problem with most palettes, is the shimmers or the metallics will transfer up to my crease. Now that happens all the time no matter what, but I have noticed that with this particular palette it doesn't do it as much and it doesn't do it as often. All in all, this is a really good palette. It's well curated, and I think that Too Faced actually really knocked it out of the park. Now when it comes to, because we've all come to know that Too Faced can be a little iffy, especially with holiday releases, I am putting this other palette to the test, which is a holiday release as well. This is the Dream Queen palette. This is $59, $59, and of course you're getting more eyeshadows, you're getting face products as well. So these palettes tend to be the ones that can be very hit and miss, or that you kind of feel like Too Faced has skimped on the quality. That's not a review. I've only worn this eyeshadow palette 3 times so far, so I have a lot more to test out before I give you a review on this. But from the first time that I tried this palette, I was like, okay, so Too Faced is not skimping on their holiday release, and I was really thoroughly impressed. My personal favorite shades in the palette are Hot Toddy, which is the shade that I have on my lid right now. It's gonna have a very beautiful duochrome. It almost has like a goldy greeny shift. It's really beautiful. I reach for that a lot. I also really like Oh Snap. I've also used Spice Rum quite a bit, and I was wearing this palette in my last video. I was wearing this palette with my lip swatch video, and every time I've created a look out of this palette, I have always liked it. I've always thoroughly enjoyed it. You can go very purple with this look if you apply, say, shades like Gumdrops, Oh Burn, Figgy Putty, and Reindeer Paws. You can get a very purpley-esque look, and of course, standard with most Too Faced shadows, you can get a very neutral look as well. As you've already guessed, I definitely think that this palette is amazing. I definitely think it is worth the money. I quickly want to reference the Urban Decay Metals palette, because if you watch my review on that, I actually thoroughly enjoyed that palette as well. I thought it blended really well. I thought the metallics were really nice. I thought all in all that was a really well done palette. Now if I had to tell you guys, or if you were on the fence about which one to pick versus which one not to grab, I would say go with the Too Faced one. Even though I do really like the color selection in the Elements palette by Urban Decay, I think that this one is going to get you a little bit further when it comes to your makeup look because it has more mattes. The Urban Decay palette only has 4 mattes. This one has 9 true matte shades in it. So I think that no matter what your skill level is, you probably can get a lot more use, a lot more wear out of this particular palette. I have been pleasantly surprised with the holiday releases that I have tried so far. I think brands are actually releasing really good makeup this time around, and this particular palette is no exception. One last thing that I do want to note is I do believe that even though the layout looks exactly the same, I do believe that this palette actually does get a little less product than some of their more standard permanent palettes in their collection. And it does have I don't like gingerbread, so I have no idea what gingerbread cookies or gingerbread smells like, to be completely honest. It does have a faint scent. It's nothing overpowering. It's nothing that's going to irritate you. It dissipates pretty much right away. Like, I pretty much have to stick my nose right into it to smell it at this point, but I've been using it pretty heavily. So if you are sensitive to scents or anything like that, I don't think that this is going to be so like aggressive and overpowering to where it would bother you. I just wanted to make note of that real quick before we bring this video to a close. So yeah, you guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you wanted my thoughts and opinions on this palette, I think that it is a really good one. It definitely does get my approval, so I think that Too Faced did an excellent job with this particular palette, and I have been reaching for it happily. Like, I have been testing, I have been switching over to this palette because, like I've mentioned to you guys in the past, when I first started doing reviews, I want to give thorough, in-depth reviews and not first impressions, because I want to be able to tell you guys what shadows swatch the best, how the pigmentation is, what I like, what I didn't like. And whenever you do first impressions, you can kind of only maybe try 5-6 shades out at a time. So that's why I'm really taking my time with these reviews and really giving you true, real feedback after testing the shadows for quite some time. So I have been reaching for this palette a ton, but I have to tell myself, put it down, because I have to move on to the next palette to review. So I'm trying to use each palette for about a week or more before I bring my review to let you guys know what I think about it. And I want to test out pretty much every single color in the palette, so that way I can let you know what's good and what's not. So yeah, that's kind of how we're doing the reviews for holiday 2018. I really hope that you have enjoyed the review so far. If you have, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe down below. And yeah, you guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!